The oldest and strongest human emotion is fear. And the oldest and strongest type of fear is trepidation of the unknown. When we were children, our parents told us that monsters didn't exist. But we were sure that something was lurking under the bed or in the closet. Fear sees even if our eyes are closed. Welcome to the realm of the arcane. My name is Lon Strickler. Join me as I examine unexplained creatures, strange manifestations, and remarkable realities. Imagine this next hour as a voyage of discovery to strange lands, seeking not for new territory, but for new knowledge of the supernatural. Come on board as we begin this adventure together. Hey folks, good evening and welcome to another episode of Arcane Radio, where we explore the unexplained live on Beyond Explanation. I'm your host, Lon Strickler, coming to you within a cannon shot of the hallowed fields of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining me. Now, Arcane Radio and the Beyond Explanation channel made possible by you liking, subscribing, and sharing our programming. Super Chat donations are essential for us to continue to offer our unique content. Your consideration is very much needed and appreciated. So tonight, I had a guest that was lined up, but he was doing an investigation, and at least he got a hold of me early to let me know they wouldn't be here. So I decided we'd go ahead and do another question and answer session. So that's what we're going to do. So if you have a question, you're in the chat room, do me a favor and in caps, post it up there and it'll get to me and I'll go ahead and answer it the best way I can. Now, I did have a question early on from a member of my team, Bernadette. She was asking me about witchcraft in Pennsylvania and powwowing and such. And I will have a guest on in January. Timothy Renner is going to be joining me. He was also a member of our team. But he's very familiar with the powwowing and other forms of witchcraft in Pennsylvania, especially in South Central Pennsylvania area where I live at. So I did tell Bernadette in the meantime, there are some books out there that she could look at. Witches of Pennsylvania by Thomas White is one of them. And White has another book, Supernatural Lore Pennsylvania. They're both very, very good books. They go into a lot of detail of some of the well-known cases and some of the story behind powwowing and folklore healing and such. It's interesting. It's something I've known about and been involved with most of my life. I grew up around a family of powwowers, and I'm pretty familiar with it. So yeah, but when Tim is here, we'll go into it much deeper and try to answer your questions. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, put them up on the chat, and we'll see if we can answer some of this stuff for you. We have been involved with this thing in Chicago some more in a bit. We did have a problem rise up a couple weeks ago where I had listed the names of the unseen ones and the winged ones online, and unfortunately, we've had a bunch of folks see that and try to summon and bind some of these beings. And we really got a backlash. In fact, I was thinking we might lose contact with them as a result. So I had to take a lot of that down. We'll have to see what happens later on down the road. But I will say that the contacts within the group have actually increased. We opened it up to members of my team now. And Jennifer actually had talked to one of her team members, and I'm not going to mention which one right now, but they have had contact as well. So, and the name might be interesting to all of you if you find out who it was, but I got to hold off on that for now. It kind of surprised me, to be honest with you. But I have been told that, and from the very beginning, I have not had much of any contact with these beings. Early on, I did, but there's something about me that they're kind of hesitant about contacting me. But I was told that I did receive a sign, a cosmic sign, to where I would be getting in contact with a new being at some point. So we'll have to wait and see how that happens. I guess I got to open myself up more for it, but we'll see what goes on then. Okay, Thomas Carroll, who's actually a member of our team now. Any thoughts on the trucker's legend of seeing the black dog just before an accident? I've heard that. I had a gentleman in Alabama mention something to me about that. That he had actually, now this was an area between Birmingham and Jasper, if I can remember correctly. There's the highway, and I don't know the highway number offhand, but there's an area there where a lot of dog man sightings are and there are a lot of strange cryptid canines in the area as well. And I do remember in particular that there was an instance where this truck driver said he did see a large black dog going across the highway, and not too many minutes later, there was an accident across on the other lane between a trucker and another trucker. And I don't know how that happened or what it was, but I was actually asked that same question. Now, as far as any other incidents, firsthand, I have not received any, but I have heard of it. So I don't know if there's anything to it or not, but who knows? Claudia Castilla has asked, are your listeners starting to dream about the unseen? Well, I have had a couple contact me, and I haven't shared this with the group. I've had a couple contact me and say they have. And they've also given me some descriptions, which is interesting because some of the descriptions are very similar to what people on the team have been describing. Now, I don't know why that is. I don't know why they're doing that. They haven't mentioned to anybody on the team about it. I don't believe it has anything to do with the situation where people are summoning them and binding them or doing other things. But and I will say, for folks who try to do that, I know of one instance where somebody was actually retaliated because of it. And I don't think that it was too pleasant an ordeal, so I wouldn't suggest doing it. They're a little iffy about that. So, but no, there have been people who, especially people who are reading the blog, who have inquired about having dreams of these beings. Now, dreams are dreams. I don't know if there's much to that, but it has been brought up. So, anybody got any more questions? Vincent, you can put it up there if we get any more. Let's see. Heard of any recent this is from Blue Cross, was any recent UFO activity in Eastern Pennsylvania, asking for a friend? Well, Eastern Pennsylvania is a hot area anyway. The Bucks County and some of the counties near to like Montgomery and those, that they have always had a lot of UFO activity. Butch lives in Berks County. He's not far from Reading, and of course, that whole Susquehanna River Valley has always been hot for UFO activity since the 70s. It just happens, and he says it's been busy. I talked to Stan Gordon a couple of days ago, and he's telling me that it's been busy out his way too, out in Westmoreland County. So Pennsylvania's been pretty busy. Eastern Pennsylvania, it's always been a lot of UFO act, even around Philly. Philadelphia and the suburbs have been pretty active for a long time. I guess the most the UFOs are craft seen are orb like. I don't know if they're really craft, but we get a lot of lights in the sky and a lot of unexplained stuff out there. So, what I'll do is I'll get Butch on here one day in near future, and we'll talk UFOs and Dogman and such. And look, folks, if you have any suggestions about guests, feel free to contact me either on the blog or on my Facebook or Messenger and inquire about bringing guests on. I'm always open for suggestions. What is your opinion on fairies? From Claudia. Tim Renner's probably the guy to talk to about that. Him or Joshua Cutchin. I have never had an encounter that I know of with one of these beings. I have had a lot of reports over the years. I actually did a clearing in Missouri years ago involving a malicious fairy that was causing problems with a couple. Sometimes these fairies can come to the levels like an elemental or malicious elemental. I have had that before as well. But as far as actually being involved or seeing these things, that's just something I haven't really experienced. But I have been involved with cases that have had them. My opinion of them, well, they're out there. I mean, what exactly they are, they're like any other supernatural being. I mean, they're for the most part unexplained, and but people do see them. We've had some interesting cases, in particular out in Butler County, Pennsylvania, of fairy sightings and descriptions. I've had people send me drawings of what they've seen. Just think of a big Tinkerbell. I've had that before. So, yeah, we've had some things like that, very similar to that. There seems to be a different type of dog man. Do you think they are being genetically modified or created? That's from Vincent. I don't know. This whole dog man, upright canine, cryptid canine phenomena. There have been theories for years about government creation, whatever. I don't know. I've heard of different sightings out in northern New Mexico, in areas around some of the labs in government facilities out there. I don't know if there are or not. I know here in the east, where we had to do most of the investigation, these do seem to be actual beings. Are they modified beings? I don't know. They very well could be. Are they interdimensional? Probably, for the most part, because they do seem to have a lot of supernatural tendencies to them. Here in Pennsylvania in particular, we have looked into several sightings. Most of the quadrupeds have that hyena-like look to them. They're big, but they kind of take the form of like a hyena with a wolf's head, the sloping back, thick arms and legs. But they're quadrupeds. Now, unlike the upright canines, which are pretty good size, 9 to 10 foot, very muscular, thick upper body, very thin waist, and very strong muscular legs. They seem to hold their ground and don't seem to be afraid of much of anything, even folks with guns. So what they are, I have no idea, but this is something we're investigating, and I'm always keeping an open mind when it comes to any cryptid. Got any other questions, Vincent? Put it up there. Maybe I missed one here. Let's see. I did have a dream this week with Lukaya. Well, I don't know of a Lukaya. I know of a Ukiah. I knew she's a female. I remember her name so well. Yeah. Well, I don't know about Lukaya, but I know of a Ukaya. That is probably the original unseen one, probably the only actual unseen one we've had contact with. Most of the others seem to be the juvenile wing beings that are coming through and being seen on our Earth plane. The contact that we have with most of the others, seem to be these juveniles. Thomas asked, and this is about going back to the black dog. I recall a story back in I-80 near Williamsport. Driver saw a Revolutionary War soldier standing along the interstate. Well, areas where there was a lot of activity, historical activity. Pennsylvania's, had a lot of historical activity. You talk Williamsport, 81. That area up there was a wilderness at that time during the Revolutionary War. So it could have been some type of troop. Could have even been a French soldier from the French and Indian War period, years before the Revolutionary War. So who knows? But yeah, that's not, honestly, that this type of sightings really are not unusual. People see a lot of weird stuff on the highways at nighttime, especially. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Let's see. What do you think? Okay, what's up? Okay. Hey, Lon, what about those cat humanoids people see? What do you think about them? That's from DP Apocalypse 22. I don't get a whole lot of those type of sightings. There have been some historical cat humanoids like the Wampus cat or something similar to that down in Kentucky and the area around there. I did have some years ago down on the western coast of Florida along the Gulf of possible alien cat-like humanoids. But honestly, I have not received a whole lot of reports about those type of beings. Are they a type of chimera or some type of alien being of some type or hybrid? I don't know. But every once in a while, one will pop up. It's usually the ones that I have received are associated with some type of alien activity, and they just seem to show up. But I don't think they're any type of being, an indigenous being or anything like that. Louisiana's Rougarou is the same as a dog man. In a way, I guess it would be. Every area has their own type of cryptid canine, just like with Bigfoot, there just seem to be areas that have certain descriptions, certain types of beings. The Rougarou seems to be a more aggressive type of upright canine. Of course, it's seen a lot into the bayou area of Louisiana, sometimes over into to Arkansas and other areas along the coast. But no, I think it probably is associated with that type of humanoid canine, cryptid canine being. What do you think these flying manta rays are? I honestly believe, for the most part, that they may be some type of bio craft, as opposed to being a being. Because I have heard descriptions of all sorts of these things, and they do fly, of course, and they undulate very similar to what a manta ray would in the ocean. They're usually very near water, but they just seem to show up in all places. I've actually had them show up in the middle of a city somewhere. Now, I don't know why they take that form. Do they take that form because it's something that these beings or whoever's in charge of flying or manipulating these things, just something that'll look like something familiar to humans? Now, a flying manta ray would kind of get anybody's attention if they're trying to hide that. But there have been a number of sightings over the years, and I've had them all over the country now. It's something I really started looking into very seriously about, I don't know, about a decade ago. And some of the earlier sightings, which is interesting, some of the earlier sightings were down in the along the Ohio River, uh, anywhere from I don't know, I guess from Cincinnati up into the Wheeling area. So that's a pretty long stretch, but I had sightings there, and the eastern part of the United States. I had one on Long Island, a couple in Virginia and West Virginia and Ohio. So yeah. What are your thoughts, just from Bernadette? What are your thoughts on the Hat Man or Shadow people in general? I don't think they're like a regular spirit. I don't think they have uh, the makeup like an earthbound. They're different. They are definitely a malicious being, but they were never human at any time in their existence. They're like a malevolency to me, or like a scourge. They need energy, spiritual energy or human life force energy to survive. That's what they thrive on. They seem to show up in areas where there is dysfunction or death or illness. It's almost like if you imagine you're in a neighborhood and you're on the street, and this thing is walking or moving down the middle of the street, and as it goes by houses, it can tell which house has dysfunction, has problems or death associated with, and that it knows there's an energy there that it can thrive on for an extended period of time. That's where they show up. That seems to be, to me, how they come into a certain situation. I have never had a case where a shadow person being has been where there hasn't been some type of major dysfunction within the family. Now, of course, I had a very, very well-known case down in Sioux City, Iowa, where there was a shadow-like being that was there feeding off energy. And I wasn't necessarily a dysfunctional situation, but there was a lot of energy there for it to feed off of. And, that continued on for a long time. But I have had other cases, and I tell you, I've had a lot of cases up around the Toronto, Ontario area for whatever reason. I don't know what it is about that whole area, but Toronto and its suburbs, I have had a lot of shadow people infestations. And, it's one of these things where as they feed, they kill, and they can cause death. And it takes the actual residents, the victims themselves, to maintain a proper balance and to stop the dysfunction, to drive these things away, and because they will leave, there's nothing to feed off of. So when I do get involved with a case like that, that's what I'm working on. I'm trying to get the victims themselves to get their crap in order so they can so things are not as confrontational, and that's they fear, and dysfunction is a big motivator for these beings. Do you think, this from Vincent, do you think children are becoming more physically inclined or psychically inclined? I that's been going on for a long time. I mean, most psychics started as children, But there is one thing that happens a lot of times is when I get involved with a case where there is a haunting, and and if there's children at the location, many times they turn out to be beacons as well, especially if the parents are also. A lot of times these cases involve psychic parents that have psychic gifts, intuitive gifts, and many times some of the children or one of the children has this as well. This happens many times, and that's normally a case that I will take and try to tackle because I do feel it's important to work with kids that have this and to help them understand what's going on. Of course, that's if the parents allow me to do that. But I've been pretty successful at doing that, and I've had a few some good cases where it's turned out where these children have grown into adults and are very, very gifted psychics, and they're not afraid of what happens around them. Lon, this is from Claudia on strange disappearance in national parks. What's your opinion the cause of these people being lost? I think most of it is portal related, or areas where a portal will open up or some type of void will open up and somebody will suddenly disappear. I'm not saying there are not cases where there's an abduction or by some non-terrestrial being or even an actual physical abduction by, say, a Bigfoot. I believe that's very possible. There has been some indication that has happened at some point or some points, but I think for the most part, there are indications that these voids will open up. Now, why it happens in state parks? I think it happens in state parks and known for state parks or federal parks because they're areas where people know are well known and they get reported quickly. But I think it happens in all places. There just seem to be areas that are more prone to that. It's interesting. Historic places, and I live near Gettysburg, and I believe Gettysburg is an area that has retained so much energy and may be prone to portals opening up. I think the areas like that where they have historic imprints are areas where portals can open. So if most state parks are state parks for a specific reason why, and maybe something previous that happened. So maybe that's why these portals will open up. Okay. Yeah. What are your favorite stones for grounding? Oh my, Marla asked. I use black tourmaline, and most stones that we're going to have to do a crystal show, and I'm trying to get a crystal healer, to come on the show. But for grounding, I use black tourmaline, and when I talk about a stone, I don't talk about something that's been polished or this and that. I'm talking about real raw stones. I have tourmaline that are around that size, raw stones, and I do keep them around different places. I got to get more into it. I recently got into some of my hoard upstairs and started opening those boxes up, which I haven't opened up for years. And I gotta really start getting involved with my stones and my crystals and such again. But no, as far as grounding goes, there are a lot of different ones, and people prefer their own. I've heard a lot of people talk about a lot of different stones that really don't work out. I guess it works for the individual, but raw black tourmaline seems to be one that's good for me. I have told people before that I use yttrium fluoride for a lot of different work. It's a calcium based type of fluorite with yttrium in it. It's a lavender color. They come in different forms. I like the gel form where you can kind of see through it a bit, but it's kind of opaque. Um, that is a very, very powerful stone, and I do hand pieces out to friends and colleagues to use. And I like to get their opinion on how they, how it works for them. But I have a couple pieces that I use particularly for cases, especially when I'm remote viewing. Uh, and I use a lot of inclusion type of quartzes, raw quartzes, large clusters of quartzes and such. So, but I promise you, I will find some people to come on and talk about that. I know there are a lot of people that are interested in it. So, folks keep on me, and I will eventually get some people on the show to talk about it. Let's see. Are there pale humanoids supernatural beings, or do you think they are flesh and blood creatures? Well, as Vincent knows, I'm writing a book about these beings. And I call it meme humanoids, but I do believe there are. Honestly, I think there's a species that people are starting to see on our Earth plane now. Now, why they're here, how they're getting here, I have no idea, no clue. When I say meme humanoid, I talk about like the Slender Man and the creepy pasta type of beings that are kind of perpetuated over the internet. And the reason I have started talking about that and started writing about that is because I do believe that there is a strong possibility that these type of meme humanoids can actually be manifested by thought form or tulpa activity. I really do. I think the human mind can do a lot of different things, but I think because of the influx of this creepy pasta stuff and then the actual manifestations of these beings, uh, you know, and then actually coming to life and doing certain things, I think that's possible. Now, or we've had this strong influx of these pale crawler humanoids or walker humanoids for almost a decade now, and I'm not necessarily saying that those are the beings that people are talking about on the internet. They got all kinds of names for them, flesh gates, rakes, and such. But I think there is a specific type of being that does come in all different types of forms, even dark forms, that people have seen over this time. And I think there's a real possibility that we may be noticing a humanoid species either developing or naturally manifesting. You know, is it a new type of human? I don't know. Uh, it's kind of scary. It's like a monster, a real monster as opposed to a myth. So, but like I said, I am writing about it. The book is in the works, and hopefully I'll have it out within a couple of months. But it's pretty interesting some of the phenomena that may be associated with these beings. Are we creating these entities in our minds? Very possible. I think a lot of cryptids may be mind manifested, manufactured by human minds. Nothing, not unlike a poltergeist. I think the mind of humans subconsciously can do a lot of things, can develop and manifest a lot of different things. Has it gotten to the point where they actually manifest a physical being? Who knows? It's possible, very possible. There have been experiments for years, tulpa experiments, where spiritual beings have actually been manifested uh, in a type of a laboratory type environment. But for it to naturally happen in a much higher degree, I believe it's entirely possible. Do birthstones give us powers? I don't know. I don't even know where the whole birthstone thing came from. It's part of astrology or whatever, but I I don't know. I think it all depends on the individual themselves. I know a lot of people will get rings and stuff that have their birthstone or their astrology sign or stone, or I don't know if that's really, I mine is a zircon. Um, I've never really found much energy in involved with a zircon. Uh, Also, a black onyx or something like that. I just really have never found that. For me, it's kind of like, I got to go and touch one of these things to feel the energy, to feel that I can work with it. And I'm not one to basically buy stones and crystals off the internet unless I just get that real sense that I got to grab this thing, and hopefully when I get it home, it might help me. It might be something that I can work with. I really do like. I tell you how I have bought stones in the past, which is interesting. I would usually find a someone who's selling a collection, either through an estate or somebody that had a died in the family, or someone was just eliminating their collection. And there'd be a lot of specimens in there, a lot of raw stones. And what I would do, I would go to the location and start touching these stones and feeling the energy and wondering if I could use these in my work. And normally when I do this, they're not selling separate pieces. They want to sell the whole thing. So I'll usually end up buying the whole thing. And as people, well, Jennifer can tell you, I got a lot of stones and a lot of crystals packed away upstairs. But I normally will buy the whole collection and then go from there. I don't necessarily sell anything. I do give a lot of this stuff away. Uh, I try to infuse some of the use of these things with colleagues and such, and I will offer some of this to some of these better stones to some of my colleagues and friends and such. So yeah, I mean, I think anyone who's involved with any type of gifted work can can find a use for energy producing or energy enhancing crystals and stones. So yeah, that's normally how I do that. Do you think? I just got that. Do you think Cern is opening portals to other dimensions? I think there's a possibility. I really do. There have been a lot of theories about that. Of course, when this thing happened in Chicago with the winged humanoids, one of the first theories was that something's going on out the Fermi labs out in Cook County. If there was, if that CERN, or that particle accelerator, has been around for over 40 years. Apparently, when this stuff's when these beings started showing up, this particle accelerator out there had supposedly been shut down, but there had been a reported accident there years before. So was there an accident that opened something up? I don't know. I know since that time they have restarted a particle accelerator there. It has been reported in the news, but to what degree and what it's used for, I have no idea. So yeah, that's something we're looking into as far as the CERN accelerator goes out in Switzerland. I don't know. I think it's a strong possibility. It could open up. It could open up another dimension or a portal at some point. Especially if something goes haywire. I don't think it's an intentional thing, but I think there's a possibility that something could happen if if something goes awry. Uh, let's see. Do you think cheap cornstalk conjured the Point Pleasant moth? No, that whole cheap cornstalk thing. I think I think it wasn't that in particular. There's a lot of stories about the Shawnee and the chiefs that were associated with Point Pleasant, but I think there's in the area around the West Virginia Ordnance Works, and I've talked about this before, and because I've been there and I have felt the energy and I have heard some of the EVP activity out of there. I think there is a very strong indigenous spirit there, and I think and I'm not going to go too deep into this because we've had some evidence recently that, and I'm not going to say a whole lot, but and because I'm going to get yelled at for if I do, but let's put it this way: the Mothman of Point Pleasant, that being is still around. Now, for how long, I don't know, but there's some indications that that we're not supposed to get involved with it. So, but anyway, I think that being was summoned, and I think it still causes some activity there. I will say that we have received photographs that may possibly be this thing. But I can't really go into it right now because I just don't have the proof, and I don't like to talk about it unless I get more than what I've actually got. But yeah, I think I think that particular being is still around. How to help a loved one possessed for decades? Well, you got to find somebody who's willing to take on the case. And when you say possessed, what kind of possession? What's the indication? What happened? What's going on? What's some of the what are some of the signs of activity? The physical manifestations with the victim themselves, and it's a whole litany of things. So I suggest you find somebody who's willing to get involved with the case. If somebody's had issues for years, there's probably been a lot of people that have been involved with it, and a lot of people have probably perpetuated the problem. And that's what I run into a lot, where I go into a case where somebody else has actually got involved and just made things worse, and that happens a lot. I get upset when people take it upon themselves that I'm a spirit rescuer, I can kind of clear this, clear that, and just go into a situation and bamboozle the people who are the victims, and things that end up getting worse. There are a lot of those out there. I just caution people to find somebody who has testimonial proof that they have taken care of previous cases, and just aren't trying to blow smoke up your ass. Basically, that's what I'm, that's all I do. That's all I ask, is that you be very careful with what you get or people you're associated with. Thomas Carroll, thoughts on the Philadelphia experiment? I think something did happen. Now, I don't know exactly what did happen. There's been a lot of speculation as to that whole experiment, the magnetic anomaly that call. And if people aren't familiar with it, it was supposedly a type of experiment that was done in the port, or near the port of Philadelphia in the Delaware River, where a battleship there was a magnetized craft with actual military people on it, and some of these people were actually embedded into the ship itself. Some died, some I don't know how much of the story is actually true, but I do know, and I have written about it, of cases where the government has tried to use magnetic energy to cloak ships. And I don't know if that was the case with the Philadelphia experiment, if that's actually one that got away, or for one of many other types of experiments, or I don't know. All I can say is, if you read the book or see the movie or whatever, there's been a lot of talk about it over the years. I think honestly, I think a lot of what was put into books was fictionalized. Um, but there is a litany of other ships that have gone through this, and where they tried to cloak these ships using magnetic energy. So your guess is as good as mine. That's about the best I can tell you on that. Uh, Anything else, folks? Uh, Blue Crossroads made a comment here. Lon's doing some skating body language. Well, I assure you, I'm not trying to keep anything from anybody. If I can say it, I'm going to say it. And if you want to make comments like that on the chat, look, don't show up anymore. That's fine with me. You know, if you think I'm full of crap, that's fine. You know, I can stop doing these things anytime. That's no problem. Do you think paranormal activity is increasing? I think it's being noticed more. I think the advent of the internet and social media and stuff, I think people are recognizing it more. And, you know, I think people are more open about talking about it as opposed to what they used to do. I don't think it's really increased. I just think it's coming to the forefront more so than it did before. Now you're saying no. I think you're nervous about the question. No, you know, guys, look, take Blue Crossroads off. I just drop him. I'm getting tired of his comments. He's said a lot of stuff previous. I don't want to deal with this guy. Have you had reports about Livermore? If you're saying Livermore, you're talking about the laboratories out in California. I don't know. Is that what your Livermore Labs? I don't know if that's what it is. Are the reptilians pulling the strings? I don't know. I don't think so. You know, there have been cases where I have been involved with supposed reptilians. You know, I've been asked about doing documentaries involving reptilian activity and such, which I try to avoid. Most of my knowledge on reptilians has to do with David Eckhart. And I have in the past talked a bit about it. I've written about it. Are they pulling the strings? I don't know. I don't think they're the higher form. I think that they do actually work as you can call it a taskmaster or something involved with these groups and stuff. But I think there is a hierarchy. We have talked about the reptilians. I have talked about the reptilians either being metamorphosized beings that turn into a higher level. I think the insectoids, or these mantis beings, are actually metamorphosized reptilians. You know, I have seen some evidence that may actually be what's going on. Now, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial or anything. This is just things I have seen, and then with witnesses and such. So, are they part of a hierarchy? Yeah, but I don't think they're the highest level of the hierarchy. So, are they pulling the strings? I don't really think so. I think there's something above them that does most of the decision work. Oh no, where Night of the Living Dead was filmed, I heard about a city cemetery that was underwater. Very haunted. Oh, okay. Well, that's out by your way. You live in Somerset. That was out by oh god, I think it was Westmoreland County, but where they did film it. You know, I don't know. I mean, you need to ask somebody who's really involved with George Romero and the whole Night of the Living Dead. that goes into a lot of different facets. Folks that live out that way. I know the area now. There's a actual shopping center on a former shopping center in that area. So you might want to talk to some people that know a bit more about that. Any updates from the Todd Seas case? No, we're not getting a thing. There have not really been much of anything going on there. I don't know. You know the Butch and I had talked about that recently, actually, and there just does not seem to be any more news coming out from that. I'm not saying there's not more there. I believe there is. I think that whole thing was a huge cover up. In August of next year, it'll be 20 years since that incident. So, maybe one day we'll get some more information. I would love to do a book about it at some point if there's more that comes out. But the family itself is really touchy about that, and at this point, I can't really say much of anything. Higher ground. Lon, do you believe in the Gnostic theories? Archons influence humans for the worse. Yeah, it could be something to that. I haven't really seen much of that. Ufology in general have a lot of conspiratorial theories involved with it. I'll be honest with you, I just don't know the agenda of many of the people that talk about this type of stuff. When I do reporting, I report on things that I've experienced or people that I work with have experienced. As far as the archons go, I can't really say that that's the case. I tried to stay clear of a lot of the unsubstantiated theories and stuff that a lot of people put out there. Let's put it that way. Ufology has a lot of nutcases out there, to be honest with you, and I just try to push away from that as much as I possibly can. What do you think the idea of reptilians or dinosaurs that evolved intelligence way before humankind and survived the events that wiped out other dinosaurs? Possible, I suppose. I'm not really looked into that. It's an interesting concept. Like anything else, there have been mass extinctions. I think there's at this point now there are 5 or 6 mass extinctions at some point. I mean, throughout the history of Earth, have previous beings, have evolved an intelligence to where they could avoid catastrophe. I believe it's entirely possible. Did they move into other dimensions where they survived catastrophes? Absolutely. So, that's about the most I can say on that at this point. Are black-eyed children demonic or extraterrestrial in origin? I think they're probably a combination of a few things. Extraterrestrial, possibly demonic. I doubt it. Most people know my thoughts on demons and those types of things. It may be some type of malevolency that gets involved with these human children that turns them into the black-eyed kids. But I'll be honest with you, I think there's probably another party involved, and I think it's probably extraterrestrial in nature. I don't think it's a spiritual or demonic thing. If it was demonic, I think there would be more nefarious activity associated with these beings. And most of the times it's pretty innocuous activity. People just see them, they get a bad vibe off of them. They're able to they move about quickly, and but it's very rarely malicious. But no, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. It does happen sometimes. But I think there's probably a non-terrestrial involvement with these beings at some level. Has anyone ever let a black-eyed kid in their house? Does anyone know what they want? Well, I don't know. I think they probably have, and they probably weren't around to talk about it. I don't know. I have heard people talk about actually letting one get in and causing issues afterwards. I do know of a case out in Wyoming where a woman had let one in to her home to use, and they always seem to want to use the phone or whatever. And then this thing got in the house, didn't want to use the phone, wanted a drink of water, seemed to be scoping the house out more so than anything else, then would leave, and then a lot of strange activity would ensue afterwards. And when I say strange activity, almost like some type of quasi extraterrestrial activity, but it's really undefined. You don't hear a whole lot of those stories. Most of the time, it's just something that's seen, tries to get in somewhere, and the witness is smart enough not to let them come in, and they just get that vibe that I'm not doing this, and that seems to be most of what I hear, or most of what I've seen as far as experiences go. Experiencers, why so many given ESP, PSI activity? I don't think it's something that's given to them. I think it's something that they have developed previous, and that's why they become experiencers. I think most people who go through, and when I'm talking about experiencers as far as alien abduction or alien encounter, I think they're chosen. And I think they're chosen because of the abilities they had previous. It may not be something that they know of, but it's latent and it comes out after the experience. So I don't think it's something that is developed, because of the experience. I think it's something that's probably exasperated after the experience. I got one more question. Time for one more question. If you want to go ahead and put something up there. If not, okay. Well, that's it. And hey, folks, thanks for coming on here. And we're going to be we're not going to have a show for the next 2 weeks because of the holidays. And at the first year, we're going to start back up, and you'll get plenty of information about that. But if you have an unexplained encounter or sighting, contact me at Phantoms of Monsters. I want to thank you all for coming in here and participating tonight. And I thank each one of you actually for watching and chatting. If you made a super chat donation, I really appreciate it. And your support will make all this possible. So please like and subscribe. So, y'all have a happy holiday, happy new year, and I will see you afterwards. So until that time, stay healthy, have a safe, enjoyable weekend, and good night.